The Outer Frontier. Book 1. The Declaration of War. Chapter 1. The Youngest Civilization. Morning light filtered through the crystalline dome of the grand auditorium of the Imperial Academy of History. Thousands of hexagonal panes refracted the rays of Illyria's pale white sun into ribbons of silver and gold that slowly drifted across the amphitheater. The room itself was circular, carved from polished white stone veined with luminous blue minerals that pulsed faintly beneath the surface. Tier upon tier of floating seats surrounded the central platform, each occupied by a student dressed in the immaculate gray and indigo robes of the Dominion's academic order. Not a whisper disturbed the silence. Among the Illyrians, discipline was not merely expected. It was instinct. Professor Kaelor Therys entered precisely at the appointed second. Tall and slender, with silver blue skin and luminous amber eyes, the elderly scholar moved with the effortless grace characteristic of his species. Fine strands resembling metallic fibers flowed from the back of his elongated head, marking decades of academic distinction. A narrow sash embroidered with golden symbols crossed his chest, the insignia reserved for imperial historians. He placed a single crystalline data prism upon the lectern. The room darkened. Above him, a holographic image slowly emerged. The Milky Way. Its countless stars shimmered in perfect silence. Kaelor allowed several seconds to pass before speaking. History, he began calmly, is not merely the memory of civilizations. He turned toward the immense spiral galaxy suspended above him. It is the memory of their mistakes. The hologram expanded. Thousands of colored regions appeared, each representing one of the great civilizations belonging to the Galactic Union. Blue, emerald, amber, violet. Hundreds of worlds connected by intricate networks of trade routes and diplomatic corridors. Near the galactic center, the Dominion occupied one of the oldest and most stable territories ever charted. Farther outward, a much smaller region glowed in pale blue. Professor Kaelor enlarged it. The human confederated territories. Several students exchanged discreet glances. A few quietly sighed. The professor noticed. As expected, a faint smile crossed his face. Whenever humans become the subject of discussion, curiosity is quickly followed by skepticism. Soft laughter echoed through the auditorium. It is understandable. He touched the hologram. A rotating image of Earth appeared. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. So ordinary, one student whispered. So improbable, Kaelor corrected. The species known as Homo sapiens achieved faster-than-light travel scarcely 3 centuries ago. Several students instinctively activated their personal record crystals. For comparison, Kaelor continued, our own Dominion had already maintained interstellar civilization for nearly 12,000 years. The difference appeared beside the planets. 1284 years. 307 years. The contrast needed no explanation. They are, he said, the youngest civilization ever admitted into the Galactic Union. The hologram shifted again. Human ships appeared. Unlike the elegant curved vessels common throughout Union space, these machines looked brutally functional. Dark armored hulls, massive engine blocks, external weapon batteries. No decorative structures, no graceful lines. Everything appeared built for endurance. One student frowned. They resemble military vessels. Professor Kaelor nodded. They usually are. The auditorium laughed again. The curious aspect, he continued, is that humans possess one of the largest standing fleets among all Union members. Another student raised a hand. Against whom? Kaelor paused. An odd question, one that historians had debated for decades. No one knows. The room fell silent. No neighboring civilization has ever recorded a large-scale conflict involving humanity. They have no declared rival empire. They possess no expansionist doctrine. They have initiated remarkably few wars. And yet, the hologram filled with human warships, destroyers, cruisers, carriers, planetary defense stations, orbital shipyards, military production figures began scrolling beside them. Several students stared in disbelief. It makes no sense, someone murmured. Correct, Kaelor replied. It does not. He allowed the silence to linger. The prevailing theory within the Imperial Historical Council is that humanity's military development is primarily psychological. A new diagram appeared. Human neurological scans, emotional responses, behavioral studies. Homo sapiens are not governed primarily by logic. They experience unusually intense emotional states. They display extraordinary persistence even under hopeless circumstances. They willingly sacrifice themselves for abstract concepts. Duty, honor, freedom, hope. He looked across the auditorium. Concepts which, while admirable, frequently interfere with rational decision-making. Several heads nodded in agreement. They also possess an alarming tendency to disregard procedures. More laughter. A diplomatic protocol becomes. He searched for the appropriate translation. A suggestion. Another wave of restrained amusement. A safety regulation, a challenge. Even Kaelor smiled. And an impossible mission. The professor paused. An invitation. This time the laughter was louder. He allowed it. Then his expression slowly became serious once more. Nevertheless, the galaxy reappeared. One should never mistake unpredictability for incompetence. He enlarged humanity's territory again. It occupied the outer edge of one spiral arm, far from the prosperous central regions. An inconvenient frontier. Human expansion followed a direction that no elder civilization considered desirable. A student frowned. The frontier. Precisely. Resource poor. Isolated. Difficult to navigate. Little commercial value. So they settled where no one else wished to settle. Another student raised a hand. By accident. Professor Kaelor hesitated. No historical evidence answers that question. The hologram slowly zoomed farther outward, beyond the mapped borders, toward regions almost entirely dark. Only a handful of ancient exploration routes remained visible. Then even those disappeared. Nothing. No stars. No colonies. No civilizations. Only blackness surrounding the distant edge of the galaxy. Kaelor deactivated the image before anyone could ask further questions. That, he said calmly, is a subject for another course. The lights returned. The students began gathering their data crystals. None noticed the professor remained perfectly still. For the briefest instant, his amber eyes rested upon the now dark projector. There had once been additional records. Ancient exploration reports. Expeditions that never returned. Entire archives quietly sealed by the Union centuries before humanity had reached the stars. He had requested access. Permission had been denied. Even Imperial historians were not authorized to read them. Kaelor looked once more toward the empty projection chamber. History, he thought, was often defined less by what it remembered than by what it chose to forget.